I first thing that you hear once you open the wall is somebody screaming. Sorry, I shouldn't do that again. Uh, but I realized I didn't have the chat open. Sorry, my bad. My bad, brother. Anyway, good evening. Uh, okay. What's the title? Mourn and processing. Okay, process. Processes? Prothesis. Prophes. Prophecy. Prosthesis? Prosthetic. Prosthetic. A. A. What if? What if we use this image? What if we use this image? I like that one. Yeah, that one. That one looks good. That one looks fine. Somebody looks at that and says, "What the fuck? Why is there a? What the fuck is that image?" And I would say, "Wow, control. That's meant to be there. Don't worry. Bigger." There we go. So, so actually wonderful. So, what else? I need to mute, unplug the mouse. I think we're fine. Am I forgetting something? I don't. Ah, yeah. I think I know what. I'm not so sure. Let me see. This is. Oh, wait. Let me mute this. No, not this one. I need to mute that one, actually. Yeah. I have to mute this one here. And yeah, we I don't know if we have the clock or not until I change scene, so that's that, I guess. Anyway, good good evening. Are we waiting for something? Why the fuck are we here instead of in the other proper scene? Good question, I don't know. Um, I'm I should probably write down what is today supposed to be about, I guess. More so because I remember, yeah. Let me actually do that. I remember that I have things that I wanted to mention from last time, and I wish I don't forget about them. So let me. I think now we're good. I think I'm probably going to be anyways writing out something. Also, why is the Is the problem the position? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. Anyway. Also, man, I forget that I can't. What's the word? I can't tab out. No, what is it? What's the name of this key? Go directly to the desktop. That key. I don't know which one is it. But anyway, welcome. Good evening. 5 minutes in. 5 minutes already. Wow. Anyway, sorry for taking so long, guys. I wasn't expecting that to be 5 minutes. Man, wow. Anyways, welcome. Today we have another day. Today we don't really have that much of a particular thing in any manner. I think today is just chilling. I guess today we have, let's say like this. In a sense, it's not that there is nothing to particularly mention. It's just I the things that I wanted to talk the most about are just continuations from the last just chatting stream that we had, in which I was trying to talk about a little bit of what was it? Um, the existence. I guess it's a very broad category to say that this thing of existence is way too generic in a sense. It's more along the lines of, yeah, I was trying to focus and trying to discuss things related to how we ourselves have to deal with many things that in themselves relate to the act of dealing with situations in life. That's a more proper definition. It is still not the most correct one, but it is something. It is at the very least something compared to not having any idea of what we are talking about. So yeah, that's basically what we have for today. Continuing with that, because I it takes way too much time to properly define those things. As I was trying to say last time, the issue is we can try to go from a different direction, more psychological direction, I guess you can say so. But the reality is there is no actual need to do so. The action of observing it from a more, yeah, from a different viewpoint, let's say it like that, from a different viewpoint like that one, makes it so that the whole explanation might be a lot less understandable in general. The obfuscated terms and whatnot might not be that beneficial in general. The point is not here to literally say something that nobody can understand. So yeah, the idea is try to be capable of explaining it in more normal terms, more daily life terms, let's say. So yeah, that's why we needed, I guess, an entire stream to do that. I wasn't actually planning to miss, I guess, so much. That's the honest conclusion. I didn't want to spend so much time without reaching to the final point of being capable of stating things in themselves in a way in which we once again get complete conclusions and whatnot. It's because of that it's kind of painful, bad, I guess. So yeah, that's that's what's happening today, mostly. Besides that, I don't think I have anything else to say. Yeah, no, not today. It has been quite a simple day. Not many things have happened. Not that much stuff has changed or anything like that. So it's not like, oh yeah, yeah. And there are also all these other things that we can look at and we can focus on before getting into the idea itself. So yeah, I don't know. I I guess I should stop beating around the bush, as they will say. Excuse me, but yeah, basically that's it. The idea is welcome everyone. I hope we are fine. I can say that I'm fine. That we are ready to talk about this stuff. So yeah, uh, without further ado, let's just commence. I guess. Um, in a quick rundown of what happened last time. Once again, let me say like this. You want to understand more appropriately what we are talking about, go check stream 420, no, 4, 418, 418, yeah, that 31. You go, you see, and from there you get to understand a lot more what we are trying to talk about, and also probably see what is it that I am missing or repeating or altering stuff that should not have been modified in any way. So yeah, uh, with that information, once again continuing from there, we were in the whole development rapidly revising what was said is basically all of us have things in life that we have to choose, things in life that require us to take some sort of action in any kind of manner. It's not something that we have to particularly worry about in terms of, oh, yeah, yeah. The best course of action and the most important course of action and the most beneficial course of action, it's just the distinction between, on the first layer of analysis, between doing and not doing something, and how, in many ways, the mere action of choosing or realizing even that you have the possibility of doing stuff allows you to exist in the world in a certain manner. This is not so specific because the issue becomes how you are capable of interpreting that for your personal experience. What does it mean that I get to do many things which I have always wanted, that I get to work on things that I need to work, that I have many areas in which I am enabled to do things in general. And the underlying notion was during a certain time period. There are different times that get to matter to us. Unavoidably, all of them are things that get to be regulated by that thing itself, time. And it is in many cases not just the possibility of doing something, but also the understanding that in some cases, or the understanding, sorry, that in some cases it's more about not just having something to do, but also having the possibility of doing something during a certain time period. Like it's complicated to explain properly because you have to be capable of realizing it in your own existence, let's say. Not always can I say things. For example, if today, as a more concrete example, if today I had other responsibilities to attend to and I had to do them before being here, and it for some reason took more time than what I actually had available during my day, or it required more energy than what I have, it would mean that we wouldn't get to have the possibility of being here. So it stops being something about, oh yeah, you have the chance of doing something. Because along the axis of the availability of the thing itself, it also is the inside of that whole equation, let's say, the existence of, and all of this is only available during a time frame, during a, it doesn't matter if it is a brief, long, a time frame in itself in which or actions can be performed. Any kind of action. It's not about, oh yeah, yeah, doing the best, the worst thing. No, 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 no. Once again, it's just doing things. Doing things is something that you can always think about only when we realize that all of our actions are always correlated to the possibility of doing them during a certain amount of time. Within that, not only do we have the issue of, okay, how much time do I actually get to have to do stuff, but also there is this whole other equation of, and funnily enough, I also have to worry, I also have to, yeah, it's unavoidably, it's, I also have to occupy myself with these other things that are more related to, and you know what, I have consequences. All my actions, not only do they have a certain time frame in which I can take them, my actions will lead to also consequences. And in many cases, the point itself was, besides understanding that you get to have just a limited amount of time to do stuff, the the overarching idea that was sort of unmentioned, it's it's understandable enough by itself. You don't need to directly address it in a certain way, but yeah, unavoidably, one of the most interesting things that happens with all of this stuff is also, you know what happens. Uh, our existence is also limited in terms of, yeah, there is going to be a day in which any human being also dies. That is the final time limiter or time constraint that all of us unequivocally have. That's why we need to be capable of realizing that to some degree. It's, I wouldn't say the awareness tries to relate at all, particularly to the notion of mortality. It's just getting to put into perspective. Yeah, in some cases, I don't know. I have my whole life to dedicate it to things that I want. That's the most general statement possible. I also have, I don't know, this next year to do things that could benefit me in my physical health. Maybe if I don't change certain habits, I will have unending consequences and consequences that will last for the rest of my life. And maybe that will unequivocally harm me for the rest of my existence. That's why I need to be capable of realizing, addressing, and saying that, yeah, there are actions that I can take that will lead to better outcomes, lead to better consequences. Because once again, the whole idea is not just about having the realization of, yeah, in some occasions I can do or not do something. I have the possibility also of seeing, understanding. It's this abstraction, levels of abstraction. I can abstract myself from the actions that I want, or directly from the actions that I do want to commit. I can also abstract the possibility and the different consequences that I might want the most. If I can possibly and correctly even more address which things is it that I am trying to look forward to, and those things that I am trying to in some way orient myself towards, those, the word itself is just consequences. The any action has a reaction. That's why I decided to utilize consequences, but it could very well be anything like a goal or an objective or whatever. It's, in that case, it's just what's the word? Just a signal, I guess, or just a sort of basic symbol that can be replaced by better things or more accurate things. That idea of, yeah, I have particularly the capacity to observe and to direct myself towards certain consequences. I can get better results. I can try to avoid certain negative, once again, consequences. I can do all of those things. I can understand all of the stuff. All of those realizations come only after, let's say it like this, one allows oneself to realize what our actions will generate in terms of future. It's, I have heard a quote. I haven't thought about it like this until now, but yeah, I have heard a quote that says the human can only explain its past, and it can try to aim towards a better future that way. In a certain way, time is not such a linear thing, mentally speaking. The reality is, if I can allow myself to look towards those things that might, in any manner, allow me to have, yeah, a better passage in the rest of my life. If I can allow myself to aim towards certain goals, if I can do all of those actions that will lead to those most beneficial consequences, I can organize myself also in the future. I don't need to just understand the future. I can also make sense of the future. It's this linearity of timing, which what comes first is the future, and what is behind us is only the past. The realization, let's say like this, maybe it's incredibly confusing, but the realization that I'm trying to bring forward is the possibility of, in a certain manner, be capable of seeing that, yeah, anyone is capable of, as long as you can abstract yourself from things, as long as you have the capacity to abstract thinking, that thing, as long as you have that, you can, in different ways, try to see how is it possible for you to actually get towards results that will benefit you, and it becomes an act of understanding your future in a way in which it becomes less of a burden, of a negative thing in which, oh yeah, my uncertain future, my completely anxious inducing future. It's more along the lines of slowly getting to solve the puzzle of what is going to happen next before even taking a step. And not in a certain manner, I have to accept this. It might as well be incredibly similar to something like the ways in which anybody who, what we normally call an anxious person, tends to think about, a fearful person tends to see the world as. That's normal in a certain degree, yeah, but in some other way, it's not just that it's staying in the level of, oh, yeah, you can try to look forward, you can try to make sense out of what will happen. Therefore, you should sit down and invest your whole existence in trying to organize the most correct play that you can make in order to get everything that you want before ever moving. You only need to live in the action of considering and pondering and observing and organizing all the other things and all the other consequences before you do anything else. No, that's not the message, that's not my goal, that's not what I am talking about. Sorry. What I'm trying to go towards is this other part of, yeah, it's a possibility. We always have possibilities, we always have chances, we always have actions that create consequences. Therefore, something rational should be to observe that indeed an unavoidable, or not unavoidable, a very useful realization becomes to see how we can organize ourselves to allow our future to be more oriented towards the things that we do want. And that does not get to happen if you do not stop for a second and try to see how, in any manner, it becomes possible for you to reach such future. That's the basic statement. That's I guess until there. That you can say is the full stop. That's the whole synthesis of what we have talked about. The last stream, the entire last stream, basically is that trying to discuss that idea. The issue is, and that's why I said we need to continue that here. There are many things that are left unsaid. I I made some mention about this whole idea later, or not later, earlier, rather before streaming at all. Like I think it was on Wednesday. No, yeah, the last stream was also Wednesday, but on Wednesday, I said something about, yeah, in many cases, if the person doesn't feel like doing stuff, if the person is not capable of taking the choice and committing to what they want, it is not as possible for anyone to change, no matter no matter how easy it might look like, how possible, how feasible, how all of those things, it doesn't matter at all. What does matter is getting to actually do things. This is where all of that comes into play. Because the situation is tracing back to the scheme of ideas. We are not going to have any visual representation, so good luck trying to follow only my words. But in the whole set of I have my actions, and from the way in which my actions lead to consequences, I can assume and I can slowly make sure that the consequences themselves are also things that will lead me to more future actions that I will be more engaged in committing myself to, that I will be more interested in having the possibility of performing and whatnot. As long as I can do that, I can experience existence in a better manner. I can not be so burdened by the question of why is it that I require to exist, but rather this whole idea of what I was trying to mention, explaining to myself, getting to reach a conclusion that allows me to say, okay, now I feel like I am not just justified, but rather capable of addressing and properly grasping why is it that I am here and why is it that I am doing things. These motives behind actions. That's, I guess, the unnamed other quality that gets to be brought forward. Instead of just possessing so many unmotivated actions that are performed out of the automation of existence, it is trying to, in some manner, mention, yeah, and in a certain way, I can become minimally aware of what is it that I am trying to do, that I am trying to go towards, what are those values, desires that I have, what is all of that stuff, and why do I need to have that? Why should I at all try to care about it? Because the moment in which all of that gets explained, my own life, the final thing that should matter the most, my own life, could very much be a lot more bearable. It's the I wouldn't say promise, it's more like a claim that requires to be either proved or unproved by anyone. The capacity to observe myself from that distance is what allows me to finally make sense of what I am doing and be capable of explaining why is it that in many ways I am continuing. If I don't do that, I might not be capable of enjoying at all continuing in any direction. It's not particularly about, oh yeah, moving in this way or in that way. It's not about that. It's only about, or it's just about the level of moving at all, persisting in life. That area of resilience, I guess. Anyone who gets to have justifications for the act of existing at all can, as much as anyone else, be called a resilient human being just because you have found something that gets to explain why you are choosing to endure things that otherwise could be called only detrimental experiences. That's why in this case I'm trying to address, yeah, just stopping to think about this stuff, just stopping to see, to think about my actions and their consequences would bring me benefits. And now I'm trying to explain it as much as I can before reaching the issue of, but this is not something as easy to do. Why? One of the most wonderful realizations that I guess anyone can have is, sadly, I am not actually obliged to be capable of honestly explaining to myself why I do things. I am not at all honest with myself, not as a singular thing. The normal premise is most people who do not actually learn or constantly check what they are doing might as well find out once they start performing this act of self reflection that in many cases, what I get to say at first is the consequence that I am looking forward because or behind my actions or after the actions that I perform is not at all, or not in most cases at least, the correct reason behind why I am doing things. Not because it is not a possible consequence, but rather because my actions might not be motivated particularly by that one explanation that I can give. I am not being honest, not because also I just want to lie to myself, but rather, and that is the question, that is the issue here, of rather because of something else that I needed to figure out and that I need to be capable of explaining to myself, that I need to be capable of understanding in a certain manner. If I do not get to see the realization, the first realization is okay, I am lying. I'm saying something that I don't actually think. Or I am doing things not because of the reason that I thought I was doing them. Why I am doing them. That question is not so easy to answer. That is once again, I guess, in that case, I was also saying sort of the psychological question because unavoidably you have to ask yourself why you are doing stuff. If the point is to be living a better life, and even more in this whole hypothesis or this whole theory doesn't come from the idea of, oh yeah, everyone has a good life, we can just live better lives. No, it's more along the lines of, okay, let's say like this, I am very close to a situation in which I might as well start to think about the worst outcomes possible. And I am trying to, in any way, ease my suffering in a certain manner, in any manner actually. And the moment in which I have to judge why is it that I am acting in these ways towards these objectives, I have to be capable of recognizing why is it that in itself that happens, and it's not an easy to do task. I once again, the previous statement was suddenly the person gets to lie to oneself quite easily. I can tell myself that I know why am I doing things. The issue is, once I recognize that, it doesn't mean that I automatically gain the possibility of explaining properly why I am doing certain stuff. One of the most difficult tasks itself that happens with this realization is okay, I am trying to aim towards better consequences. My actions try to lead to better actions in the future also. The issue is, how can I make sure that all of that happens actually, and how can I make sure that I myself allow that to happen? How can I, in any manner, produce all of those things? It's not an easy task in many cases because it assumes or it requires oneself to possess that. And at that point, I will assume. So far, I haven't read, or let's say like this. I guess I have. I don't know. Uh, parentheses. I don't know. I think I have read quite a lot of stuff. I actually have sadly read a lot of stuff. I have heard a lot of people, a lot of professionals, a lot of different options, opinions, claims, and whatnot. I haven't found a proper explanation for it. How to understand it? I have heard some that feel minimally close to home in terms of okay, this happens because of this other reason, but I think the basic statement that they provide becomes too much of an argumentative thing rather than a proper clarification of or for the problem, let's say. Uh, Now, sorry, closing the parenthesis. what happens is I needed to be capable of recognizing the actual reason, and I might need to discard. I wish I could give a proper number. I it's a fearful claim. It's a fearsome claim, sorry, to say maybe it can take me 100 lies to realize why am I doing certain things. Maybe it will take me 100 errors, mistakes, and wrong judgments. Why am I acting in certain manner? Why do I have certain actions inserted into the rest of my existence, accepted as normal, integrated within myself? I the promise, it will be such a wonderful thing to say, oh yeah, you know what? I can instantly recognize it. I can, once again, the example was I have things that I do that I do not want to do, actually, that I perform out of the automation of my own existence. I can slowly try to do better, true, but meanwhile, also, I have an issue of I needed to recognize that what I was doing before, or the reason that I was giving myself before for the actions that I was performing were not the true ones. So, what does this mean is the next thing that I will realize is it going to be the true one? No, that's the issue. And that's why that claim is kind of not dangerous, but rather if you do not get to make sense out of that whole tedious action, incredibly even depressive, I guess, you might lie 1,000 times before you get to understand why is it that certain negative actions which lead to bad consequences or to less useful consequences are being performed. I needed to struggle with the act of trying to explain to myself why am I doing certain things? And that's something that I guess, once again, another parenthesis, many texts don't seem to like to claim to be capable of indicating at all, but sadly the truth is, yeah, we don't actually work that much in our own favor in some occasions, not in every single occasion. In some occasions, it doesn't happen that we are our best team member, so to speak. This whole idea, I guess, with a different phrase, um, the person is not the owner of the house that is their mind. It is the unconscious. That same sort of stuff becomes too apparent in these things, in which I have to somehow be capable of properly telling myself, properly bringing forward why certain actions that I perform are in such a way, why are certain things. And now, I guess the clarification itself is why do I need to even do that? Can't I actually just change the actions themselves? That's an incredibly solid question. I I like personally, yes, yeah, that's my personal claim behind all of that is I think humans are quite rational beings. If you try to force changes without proper reasons behind them, even more so within yourself, you're not going to be capable of changing in any way. Because the stronger traditions, the stronger, more solid, more founded ways of acting that we already are accustomed to utilizing, all of those things are quite a lot more complex to properly get rid of. In many cases, It's not even because of, oh wow, yeah. It's such a rooted thing, and that's the whole observation. Many things are rooted because they are useful for us, and many other. That's also, I guess that's even more so. That's the bad problem with all of this. Can I properly, in the act of recognizing stuff, can I recognize it in this way? Even bad habits, even bad actions that I perform might be rooted behind what gets called in nowadays defensive mechanisms, modes of subsistence that allow myself to keep going, even if they are in themselves bad things. I can justify them to myself in certain ways. I can give myself some sort of pleasure of gain, and I need, if I am trying to change it, if I am trying to get rid of that, and I can't directly address why it happens, I'm not going to get that many results out of my efforts. Once again, in this whole idea of my actions should try to lead to the best consequences possible. If my action itself is without properly observing why am I doing certain things just to try to get rid of them, I might just destroy myself in the process. That's the issue, or that's the underlying issue of all of this. I I have things that I can try to talk about. I have things that I can try to say. I need to correct. Do I understand why I need to correct them? Do I understand why do I do them at all? Do I understand personally why these parts of me are so inherent to my own existence? Or am I just trying to get rid of something that I don't know, somebody once told me was bad? Somebody once expressed passing by that might not be the best thing for me. Do I have that understanding about the situation? Do I have that patience to be capable of observing all of those things? Because here comes the other side of this. If I don't do so, if I don't have that proper realization, if I don't possess what gets called in many cases the insight behind my actions, it's quite hard, to not say directly impossible, to change habits, to change things, to be capable of modifying stuff. If I don't have that insight, if I don't have that knowledge, that it, there are way too many words that apply to this. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it the revelation, the insight, the wisdom, the knowledge, the whatever you want to call it. If you don't have that awareness about the thing, you cannot actually abandon some actions, no matter how annoying those consequences that the actions themselves generate are to us. It doesn't matter. It's not about, oh yeah, 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 today I will change because I have seen that my I don't know, I understand that the consequence behind my action is my self-destruction. Okay, do I understand also the motivation behind them? It's a it's all of this. What I was saying, it's the cohesion between both the action, the performance of the action, the motivation behind the action, the previous states of the action, and the result of the action. In some cases, also, I can't even be capable of realizing that things that can generally be called good might be, on my personal experience, bad. I might be doing stuff that, despite everyone saying are good for the general, so to speak, the motivations behind those actions might as well be completely negative in my own case. Once I search them and once I get to see them happening from my own perspective, if I don't have the patience to observe all of that, I might fall under, in that case, many habits that might as well be slowly corroding my own existence. I don't think it's the most proper clarification to do in that way. I don't think most people needed to think about it in that most distractful manner of, oh yeah, yeah, it is completely corroding my life to have these things that I don't know. I am accustomed to eating, let's say, 5 candies each a week. That's the worst action that I could ever take. Maybe not, man. Not everything is the end. Not everything is so dramatic or so full of bad effects and consequences. It's just that in some cases, in some moments of life, unavoidably, I can, by trying to search, what am I doing? Where is it that my actions are trying to lead me? Why is it that I do certain stuff? Realize that maybe this this is the problem. Without directly addressing them, getting to see those issues that exist within myself, that's the problem of why also I can say all of this doesn't come mostly from the philosophical viewpoint, but rather from the psychological viewpoint. Because the original idea is trying to talk about, oh yeah, yeah, the person gets, once they can observe their what they thought were unmotivated actions as properly oriented actions, and once they get to be honest enough about why they are doing stuff and why is it that they are moving towards certain directions, only then it can happen that we get to live a life with better days, let's say. The whole other explanation, the more real explanation is, sadly, no matter how hard I can try to tell to myself that, yeah, yeah, I need to understand this stuff. I need to understand it. I need to make sense out of my own existence. I need this. I need that. And I need time. I need patience. I need enough insight. I need all of those things. If I do not find a way in which that happens, I will only be stressing over something that seems to be fixable, but which right now I cannot change. It's this. Let's say it like this: involving the rest of the world. Something funny that happens even more in that general case is, sadly, if I hear other people even more tell me, and you know what will be good? That you get to finally do better. It's so sad to see how hard you are trying, yet you are still not doing better, man. What a sad thing to see. That you, such a hard working person, are not enjoying the fruits of your effort. You are not getting to live a better life, no matter how much you have been trying, man. It's such a negative reality, such a depressing reality. If I have to deal with those messages, if I have to deal with those ideas, I will feel bad. I don't think it's that much of a high revelation. It's the most average idea. Sadly, yeah. If my outside influences are constantly drilling into me, you could be getting better results. You could be overall doing better. You could be getting more out of life. And I don't get to live that. Not only one thing, what I was saying before, will I feel bad? But I will be feeling like everyone else sees something that I can't at all understand. That's why all of this is indeed very much related to things that, in some way, shape, or form, cause this stress. But being capable of addressing it properly is not so easy. Not such a doable task, I guess. I I feel like, yeah. Let me say it like this: it's a performable task in itself. It's about the performance. It's about the capacity to realize stuff. But No matter how hard I try, if I do not let myself analyze things with enough, it's not even about honesty. I think anyone can be honest enough about these situations. It goes back to this whole discussion of I just need a patience. I require enough time to properly observe why is it that stuff happens. I I am not trying to directly address it in any way because it's the process of everyone in a certain manner. Therefore, it becomes a highly personal thing. Maybe my solution is not what everyone else finds as a solution, but I think it's in some cases it's even why it's necessary to distance oneself from the action itself. Not doing the thing, but rather trying to think about the thing that you want to do without actually performing it, let's say, is what allows you to get a better understanding of the thing in itself, of the consequences that you are trying to get after the performance of the actions that you're also trying to do. It's, I remember, yeah, it's complicated. It's way too complicated. But let me say it like this: I remember having read about something along the lines of, in many aspects, certain things inside our life might as well be the same. For example, to cite a proper example, to do something or to not do something is the same thing. The brain does not understand the negatives. You cannot say to your brain, do not think about an elephant and be capable of not picturing an elephant, no matter how hard you drill onto your consciousness. Yeah, you must avoid thinking about the elephant. The more you mention it, the more in itself that happens. Okay, in this case, the correlation is, in many cases, the performance of the action and the desired consequences are very much the same thing. It doesn't matter what is it that we are doing, but rather what is it that we are getting after what we are doing. That's why, in a certain way, I feel like it's an incredibly risky claim, but I guess we are here to take fucking risks. We are literally just saying stuff, so something that should be obvious enough, should be self evident, is, and if I can understand better the consequences that I want to have for my whole life, I can change the actions that I do. I can change the way in which I do them at the very least. Because that's where the action and the consequence are very much the same thing. I don't do stuff for the sake of doing it. Even if this is one of the most complicated things to be capable of recognizing. I don't do stuff out of nowhere. I don't do stuff without any other idea. I can do stuff for the love of the action itself. I don't know. I can play a video game for 5 hours without any other thought in my mind besides that video game, but that doesn't mean that I am not getting anything out of that. I'm getting some sort of pleasure, I am getting some sort of distraction, I am getting something. I am gaining something by doing that, and I am finding something in that action which is only centered on itself. Now, can I realize that? Or will I just say, no, yeah, um, I I don't play video games because of any other higher purpose or bigger desire, higher objective, further incomprehensible objective, or impossible to mention consequence. I just play video games because I want to play video games and nothing else. if I stay in that state of, yeah, I'm just doing the thing because I wanted to do the thing and nothing else, I will be, once again, throwing myself out of the possibility of realizing, yeah, this is, even if I am just doing it for the sake of doing it, I am gaining something. Even if, I don't know, even if I am doing physical exercise for the sake of doing physical exercise, because the sensation of being tired makes me feel good, because the sensation of working my body feels nice, because what I intrinsically gain from that is what I am after. It doesn't mean that there is no actual motivation. That the consequence that I'm looking at is inside of what gets to always happen within the actions that I take, does not mean that there is no consequence at all from the things that I do. I want, yeah, I think it's sort of an impossible task to say. Try to think, for example, about something that truly brings no consequence to anything else, that has no consequence. There is nothing that any human being at the very least can do that doesn't lead to anything else. Even in that's why I was trying to talk about this sort of idea earlier. Even the act of sometimes negating stuff and not doing things means that we are already observing consequences, that we are already having things happen to us because of that same thing. If I decide to not do something, I am already getting the consequences of not participating in this one thing. Even if they are just basic or completely unrelated consequences, like the possibility of doing other stuff, it's in itself something that gets to happen because I chose to not choose that other thing before. That's why it's complicated to see it like that. You need to be capable of properly fitting everything inside of the picture, as everything leads to everything else in a certain manner. All the things that I do are in some way connected. Can I be capable of naming why? Can I be capable of saying why? Can I be capable of allowing myself to recognize it and even more mention it? Or will I stay just in the stage of, yeah, I might feel something, I might feel some sort of anything. That's where it becomes complicated, I think. But yeah, I don't know. Let me drink some water. I guess I have been talking at this point. I think for like an hour. So let me drink something. And yeah, I am trying to. I have still. I have. Ah man, it's it's so complicated to without directly using psychological terms. It becomes harder to talk about the bad stuff. It's incredibly easy if you just use the niche terminology, because I guess that's the overspecification of fields, that out of nowhere you have a word to describe entire paragraphs. Certainly a nice thing to have, but what's the point of having that if literally no one else can get what's behind that meaning, behind that, besides a handful of people? Hmm? It's in that sense rather useless, but let me let me try to say it like what I was trying to say before, what I was hinting at before. I did partially talk about it. I want, in some cases, I want to change the stuff. I do not know exactly what are about my motivation and the consequences of what am I doing. So if I try to do so, I will find myself going back to that thing which I supposedly said I wanted to change, because the statements that I create in many cases do not reflect the reality. That same thing of, oh yeah, I can lie to myself. I can actually lie to myself. That same thing applies to here also. I can lie to myself that I want to change. I don't need to change actually if I am capable of subconsciously, unconsciously, without realizing, without directly realizing, justifying the things that I do. And I can keep that going literally for my whole life. And once, not only do I wish to change, but I start to see why there are consequences that I might want to avoid behind the actions that I do. I need to be capable of understanding even more stuff. It's not just that, I don't know. That's why, a practical example, that's why stuff like talking about, yeah, you know what, you should abandon smoking, you should abandon drinking alcohol, you should abandon getting overly anxious or getting overly angry. It does bad to your blood pressure. It generates cancer. It destroys your liver. It destroys your intestines. It damages you in any way. I can see that. I can say that. I can mention that. But can I also see all the other things that also happen alongside that? One bad thing? It's utterly complicated to do that. I don't need to say it. I don't need to mention it. I don't want to talk about it at all. I don't feel like it is necessary for me to do so. And I don't want personally to at all address those things. I don't want to be capable of recognizing. I don't want to say it and to have to be honest with myself that in some cases it does me so well and it brings me so much joy and it allows me to have so much pleasure despite it being utterly negative for me, despite it destroying me in some way. That's why it's a complicated topic. All of those addictions that seem to be utterly destructive, it's that's why it's hard to talk about this. In some cases I might even be capable of realizing with enough patience, with enough observation, maybe these final things that will happen to me, these worst case scenarios that get to happen to those who are in any sort of addiction for too long, are things that I might be even looking at towards, are things that I might be interested in getting. Can I say that? Can I be honest and recognize that maybe becoming a completely alcoholic is because to some degree, I don't want to actually suffer a level failure, but maybe in that way, that's why I'm saying this is about psychology more than anything else. Maybe I want some sort of satisfaction from that. Maybe I get some sort of liberation. Even if I suffer, I get some sort of justified consequence. Can I properly address that? We can spend the whole day talking about the stuff of this sort. Can that actually happen? Can I actually commit that change? Be honest enough to say it out loud to myself? Or to just think about it? It's not as easy as it sounds. It takes levels of patience, levels of willness that most people do not have. Not because, oh yeah, we are all weak. Because you need to be ready to observe that incredibly ugly side of oneself that otherwise we are accustomed to never at all addressing. You need to, out of nowhere, have the possibility of pointing at things that are indeed uh, pointing at things that are indeed hurtful. And doing so is in itself already destructive. not only that, unavoidably, not only that, it sounds incredibly easy. Nonetheless, even if I am making a big scene out of the pain that it brings to say stuff that might be harsh on oneself, it still sounds incredibly easy. That trying to change habits, trying to change actions that we perform regularly, because we understand that the consequences that those things bring to our life are not the best ones that we could have, is still incredibly complicated. I can. There is this whole other side of habits, addictions, perform, performatic things that we have in our life that we have never realized were therefore certain other motives that is also related to, and maybe, and let's try to not mention so much the outside, but maybe if I lose that, I will feel even worse. What will I replace that with? Can I dedicate myself to think about what will come after leaving alcohol, after leaving drugs, after leaving all of those things? What will be my life about if I don't have that? It's not unavoidably, and I'm not trying to reduce it to the essence of, oh, yeah, yeah, you become an alcoholic and you become the, the character of the alcoholic, and all that you can do is be an alcoholic. Wow. No, 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 no. That's not the statement. The statement is this is all that I can find as good. Even if it is destructive, I can have that and not much more in my hands. Now, I need to get rid of that. Can I also find something else? I am accustomed to something. I am accustomed to one thing. I need to completely remove that from me while also trying to bring something else. It's this whole ideology of, in some cases, you have to take a nail out with another nail. You only replace addictions with other addictions. Maybe I get addicted to something that everyone else calls healthy. Maybe I get addicted to things that all of us can say are nice. And that's a complicated discussion to have. That's an incredibly hard thing to talk about. We are not ready for that entire conversation at all. That whole side of, oh yeah, people who are addicted to work, people who are addicted to success, to money, to fame, to achievements, to a legacy, to knowledge, all of those things that we can see are good. They're, I think the proper word is romanti- romanticizing, romanticization. That is it like that? Of bad. Not exactly because it is bad, but because all of us say they are good. But do we understand why we are actually doing them? And once again, going back to what we were talking about already, can I honestly say why am I doing it? I can. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm such a good person because I'm using all of my time to learn about things that I like so much. What's behind that, brother? What's the true reason behind that? Not. Do you think you are truly that good because you're learning about the stuff that you care about? You think that no one else is doing that? You think that's everything that explains your existence? I don't know, man. I don't think it's honest enough. I don't I don't think you have properly understood your own motivations. I I am not saying that you are a bad person for not recognizing that. But man, some cases, in some occasions, the even if it is something good, once again, the action in itself does not matter about the motivation, the outcomes are what matter. And if we cannot properly observe them, if we cannot properly point towards that, might as well not matter. It might as well not be at all important. So I don't know, man. It's it's complicated, I guess. But yeah, I still I propose something. I don't want to say a promise. I don't think it's a fucking promise. It's a proposition. It's a proposition that can be either taken as something that might be true or something that needs to be proven to be false. The idea is okay, I want to say that this shit is garbage, that this person is wrong. I might as well have to try it out. I might as well have to see for myself if this is such or not. And only then I get to conclude anything. And only then I get to see if any change was effectuated in the rest of my life. I guess, yeah, I don't know. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. I should, being honest, give me like 10, 20 seconds. I should honestly shut up and try to rapidly think if I am forgetting anything else inside of all of this topic. I don't, if I have to be honest, I don't like to forget things that I believe are incredibly necessary to say. Because in this case, we can finally properly address it. It is the opportunity to do so. If we end up leaving stuff unmentioned, it is a fucking failure. Oh yeah. You already did a partial so bad sense. No, man, it doesn't matter. You know how many people have partially said so many great things? It doesn't matter how much you can partially so something. We can always do partially stuff. I can always be minimally good at things. Doesn't matter. What matters is properly doing stuff. So, let me say like this, yeah. To address it more correctly, it is even literally on the title of today's stream. Morning. That part has to happen fucking a lot. This idea of it's not a conscience that word is there. In many cases, that's the more emotional side. In many cases, unavoidably, if we realize that the things that we are doing might not be as beneficial to us, and we need to part ways with them, it becomes a process of slowly removing those things while also accepting that it is necessary to give them a proper, and this is a complicated word because it needs to be an internal procession of the thing. It needs to be given enough respect, and it is something that requires mourning. It is something that requires not suffering for the sake of suffering, but it requires seriousness. I cannot say that I want to change for the sake of just changing if my actions do not lead me to better future consequences, if what I am doing does not bring me any satisfaction. I am just lying and I am just doing things without a proper purpose in mind, without a proper observation behind what I am doing. I am just parroting what other people can explain, but can I actually say why am I doing it? No. Can I actually understand why do I need to do that? Can I actually, and this is part of the mourning process, I can finally part ways with something that was bad to allow something new to come on onto its place, occupy that empty area that I am accepting to live. That's ah, that's the complicated part of this. In a certain manner, the completely. I think I didn't mention that in the whole stream, but yeah, it's also about vulnerability. I need to be to some degree vulnerable enough to be capable of removing something from myself that I have rooted on my own ways of being. Only then it becomes a possible thing for me to plant a new seed, a new hope, a new interest, a new passion, a new anything. Otherwise, if I do not allow myself to do that, I cannot force that whole process. It won't lead to any change. So yeah, that's. I think now, yeah, have said anything. I I guess I don't know. I I remember. I remember why I wanted to talk about teeth still, and I think from the more objective viewpoint, I have said everything. Uh, Subjectivity is an interesting proposition. We are not going to go there anyways. So yeah, that's it for today, I guess. I don't have that much more to add. I don't have that much more to say to include onto today's exposition, I guess. So yeah, no, yeah, yeah, truly, nothing else to add. I guess, I guess that's it. ah, anyway, how have a good night. I am happy. I'm more than fulfilled. That was a refreshing one. So yeah, have a good night. Take care. I guess I don't know. Suffer not for the sake of suffering, but for the sake of everything else. For the sake of everything that you hold dear, suffer. Otherwise, it won't be enjoyable at all. But yeah, live life, hydrate, drink something, sleep, do all the other things that matter. Do all of that. And yeah, as always, thanks for listening. That's what matters the most. And I should honestly always say it. Sorry for not saying it enough. That's literally what matters. It doesn't matter what I say. That's something wonderful, I guess. Quick final addendum. Certainly, yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter what anyone says. What matters is what we get out of what other people are saying. It doesn't matter. I probably I guess I'm talking about something that I might have heard 100 times in different ways. Does it actually matter? In a certain way, no. What matters is what I can understand from all of that. Once again, am I just parroting something? Am I gaining something by hearing this? Am I gaining something by trying to pay attention? Good question. Do things that feel nice and find which of those nice things are truly edificating, I guess. But we don't talk about all of that at all, so good luck figuring out on yourself. Anyway, I'm out. Good night.